Is this the end for the Shinawatra political dynasty in Thailand? Former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra was supposed to show up at her Supreme Court trial in Bangkok. Instead, she flew to Dubai, joining her brother, who's another fugitive former leader. Why is the family so controversial in Thailand? Well, this is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Adrian Finighan. She made history 6 years ago by becoming Thailand's first female Prime Minister. Now she's a fugitive, just like her brother, who was also Prime Minister and wanted for corruption at home. Yingluck Shinawatra was supposed to be in the Supreme Court on Friday to hear the verdict after a 2-year-long trial. Sarah Kairat takes up the story.
Despite heavy security outside Thailand's Supreme Court, her supporters remained defiant. They gathered with red roses and more, but she never turned up.
I don't know what to feel, but we have to be understanding here because there is no justice here, and our society is not democratic.
Yingluck Shinawatra was expected to attend the verdict on Friday following her 2-year-long corruption trial. Instead, members of her party said she boarded a private plane and headed for Dubai. She insists she's innocent, a victim of what she calls a deep political game.
If she's not guilty, she should stay and fight the case. To fight the case, the law's already on her side. It's been amended. The new law would allow her to appeal. So if she's not here, what does that tell you? Will she still say that she didn't get justice?
Dubai is where Yingluck's brother and former Prime Minister Thaksin lives. He's been in self-imposed exile for more than a decade, avoiding a prison sentence in Thailand for corruption. The Shinawatras come from a political family dynasty. They emerged onto the political scene in 2001 with a series of welfare schemes. Despite the best efforts of Thailand's elite who are close to the royal family and military leadership, the help schemes won them votes and loyalty from Thais living in poor and rural areas. 3 years ago, weeks of protests calling for Yingluck's resignation became a turning point for the military. She was ousted in a coup just 3 years after becoming Prime Minister. Yingluck was soon put on trial for the alleged mismanagement of a rice subsidy program, which cost Thai taxpayers billions of dollars. The court case has left the populist movement that has dominated Thai politics for a generation without a leader from the family.
I think the immediate result is the end of the Shinawatra family in politics. Because with 2 fugitives in the family, I think the family lost political legitimacy to enter politics again.
While a warrant has been issued in Thailand for Yingluck's arrest, there are reports the 50-year-old may try to seek asylum in the UK. Sarah Kairat, Inside Story.
All right, let's bring in our guests for today's discussion. Joining us now from Bangkok is Kasit, Promya, former foreign minister in Thailand. From London, Verapat, Pariyawong, political commentator and visiting scholar at SOAS at the University of London. And also in Bangkok is Boonpracong, political analyst and former national security advisor to the Yingluck government. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. Thanks for being with us on Inside Story. Let's start with you, Sean. What do you make of all of this? If Yingluck, as it looks as though she has fled the country, how was she able to do it? What will her supporters make of it, given that she'd appeared quite determined to see the court case through and to prove her innocence?
Well, she was hoping to get a fair trial, but as within the last days, it becomes clear that the justice would not be, it would be a little bit more preordained that she would be guilty. And there was a decision that would be made that she might as well take a chance and just decided to leave the country. I could confirm that she's not in the country. And most of her followers are quite relieved to know that she would not be imprisoned and she could be more useful outside the country. And it could be pointed out more or less on the Thai justice system that it was a collaboration of the current government that they have to answer the world why that her asset was seized 3 weeks before the verdict was announced. So this is the reason why she moved on and left the country.
And Sean, what will her followers, her supporters, make of that?
Her supporters, like I said previously, were relieved that she doesn't have to spend time in prison. They understand there will be some segment, but very, very few, that expect to be critical of her, and that's come naturally. But as a whole, they were really relieved. But the type of cause that they are concerned with, which is the uplifting of poverty, the things that matter to them, I think that the part that represent would always be there for. So I don't think it would affect the supporter that much, but we have to wait and see in the long term what would happen. I foresee some worsening of political situation. In a way, the army did not anticipate this scenario that this would happen. And so we have to wait and see if there will be an election. That's a question everybody asks to observe in the near future. But this is too soon even to give a little bit of a long-term ramification.
Verapat Pariyawong in London, what do you make of what you've just heard? Yingluck says she's the victim of a subtle political game. Is she?
I think if you apply a very general standard, an elected prime minister who has been overthrown by a military government, and then after that act of military intervention has faced dozens of cases which are legally dubious, I think it's not a surprise that she decides to leave the country. Let's not forget that just a few months following the military coup in 2014, Yingluck actually was visiting France, the UK, and United States. She had plenty of opportunity if she wanted to leave. But after the coup 3 years ago, she was adamant that she will continue to be in Thailand to fight this case. So what is more surprising to me is the fact that she could, as we know now, leave Thailand without the knowledge or any form of participation from the military regime, the military personnel or the police, given the fact that she's been closely tracked all along. And she lives in a very big house in the middle of Bangkok. It's not difficult at all for the police and the military to know her whereabouts 24 hours a day. So I think that raises a big question whether this is just suddenly she has a change of mind. And I have to add that somehow it works out conveniently for the military regime in Thailand. First of all, the military no longer has to worry about the outcome of the judgment. If Yingluck were to be convicted and put in jail, of course, there is a possibility that the numerous supporters of Yingluck Shinawatra in Thailand might have something to say or do in Thailand that might worry the military. On the other hand, if Yingluck were not to be convicted, the military would face a serious blow to all its claims that this is a fight against corruption and abuse of power. So in the end, for whatever reasons, this surprising disappearance of Yingluck somehow conveniently works well for the military government in Thailand.
All right, let's put that to the former foreign minister then, Kasit Promya in Bangkok. Sir, thanks for being with us. What do you make of what you heard there? That this is all very convenient for the military government, that she wouldn't have had a fair trial. It was all preordained, and the military wasn't anticipating her disappearance.
I think that was the collusion between Yingluck and the military authority. There was a collusion. So it was a political decision by the highest authorities in Thailand to allow Kun Yingluck to slip out of Thailand. It's political expediency, it's prearranged, and it's convenient both to the Yingluck side and to the military authorities, so that the street of Bangkok will be quiet and stable. It's convenient to everyone, to the authorities and on the Yingluck side.
To her detractors, sir, does Ms. Yingluck's failure to appear in court for the verdict signal an admission of guilt?
Yes, definitely, because the cases brought against her was done by the anti-corruption body, and also the Office of the Attorney General. There were a lot of evidences of corruption being put into the right scheme, and the country has lost billions and billions of US dollars. The evidence and the facts and so on were all there. So political aside, I think purely from the judicial and legal aspect, I think she would have been declared guilty, but there would be political repercussion. So I think the Yingluck side and the military must have gone through some sort of arrangement to allow her to leave the country. It would not have been possible for a lady of that stature in the society to be able to live by herself.
Sean, Boonpracong in Bangkok, would a guilty verdict have led to unrest, do you think, in Thailand? There were around, 5,000 of her supporters outside the court for the verdict on Friday, despite a ban on political gatherings of more than 5 people, and pleas from Ms. Yingluck herself for her supporters to stay at home.
Well, there are several scenarios. If if the verdict happened to be, let's say, a suspended sentence, there would be peace. But if there were some type of severe punishment, like what happened to the Minister of Commerce, Boonpracong, of 42 years prison term, it would be that there was some possibility that violence may take place. However, with this card, the way Yingluck left the country, I don't necessarily agree that it really would be beneficial for the military. I would see as is create a certain vacuum of power within. Right now, there are people that are resentful that something like this could happen. There's going to be a focus on Thai justice from international perspective. And the worst case, that within the military command that I have talked to, they were worried that there could be a more or less like lone wolf situation happen. But we have to wait. But the long-term resistance toward the junta does not subside. It would continue. Opposition are figuring out a way now could move forward without Yingluck, and that would mean that so many leadership, a new one that appear on the horizon that they don't know, is not necessarily good for the army. So this is, I think that this is really unknown that Thailand has to watch for, and the military would be a little bit more repressive, and this is why it's not necessarily a positive that there would be election coming after this, as everybody foresee. Yes, there most likely would be, but we never know now. It put political scenario in unpredictable state.
Okay, I want to talk about what happens next in Thailand, and what happens also with the Shinawat's political legacy. But first, Verapat, Pariyawong, I just want to get your thoughts on the case against her. It was all about a rice subsidy scheme which ultimately overpaid farmers and cost the government billions of dollars. It was a flawed policy, but was it a bad policy in terms of what it was trying to do, improve the lot of poor rural farmers?
I think if you ask economists and policymakers, different people would have different opinion. But let's be clear, this court, in the Supreme Court in Thailand, did not rule on the validity or the virtue of the policy itself. The court was concentrating on the fact that the selling of the rice were problematic, because the court found that there were some dubious company set up as if they were representing China, but in the eyes of the court, the companies were more or less colluding with members of the government. But this is where it gets problematic when it comes to Ms. Yingluck. Ms. Yingluck was not directly in charge of the process of selling those rice. It was the Minister of Commerce who has now been sentenced to jail. Ms. Yingluck was the Prime Minister. She oversees a lot of government programs and a lot of government policies. So when we talk about this case, people usually use the term corruption, but the actual legal case against her was more, to be more specific, called a dereliction of duty, which means that she did not exercise enough caution, according to those who bring the case against her, to stop this selling of rice to these companies.
But as Prime Minister, I mean, at a policy level, she was saying that she had nothing to do with any corruption that may have taken place at the implementation level. And neither could she. I mean, surely as Prime Minister, she can't have been expected to oversee the scheme to the extent that she would have spotted any wrongdoing. Prime Ministers can't be that involved with the running of policy, can they, on a day-to-day basis?
Well, they can, but there are two solutions in the context of political world. You have the political accountability system and the legal criminal responsibility system. If the Thai people feel that Ms. Yingluck didn't do a good job, of course they don't have to elect her next time, or the representatives in the parliament can vote her out. But when we talk about criminal liability here, it's a very problematic concept when you say that the Prime Minister didn't exercise enough caution to stop this project. Let's say, for example, if someone claims that in the US or in the UK there are tax frauds going on, should the Prime Minister, the President suddenly say we're going to stop the entire tax system because there are tax frauds going on? And if there are tax frauds going on, somehow the Prime Minister, the President has to be liable for what the IRS or the Revenue Department is engaging in? I don't think that makes sense at all in legal terms. So that's the first issue when it comes to the legal case against her. It's a very problematic case in my opinion. Now, going to the other point that you mentioned earlier about what's going on next in Thailand, this is even more problematic because let's not forget this is not the first time that an elected prime minister supported by a large population in Thailand is being kicked out by military intervention. So the trend is quite scary in Thailand. It simply sends the signals that if you're elected by the people, no matter if you're a good person or a bad person, but if you're elected by the people, I don't think you can stay in power in Thailand.
All right, let's get into that a little further with Kasit Promya. So you are firmly politically opposed to both Yingluck and her brother Thaksin Shinawatra. Why? Help us understand why, despite their huge support among the rural poor and blue-collar workers in the country, they were despised by so many in Thailand.
I can claim to be a former friend of Prime Minister Thaksin. I did work with him, so just for the record. But
okay, so you weren't. My apologies if you weren't.
Okay, so that's for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
so no. I think it's nothing to do with personal relationship. It's about the good of the country, and I found the administration of both Prime Minister were not conducive to the well-being of Thailand. Set that aside. But coming back to the rice thing, Prime Minister Yingluck was the chairman or chairperson of the Rice Policy Committee during her tenure. And all along she was being warned by the Anti-Corruption Commission about the fraud that was going on under the rice scheme. She was also later warned by the Office of the Attorney General that something was going wrong with the rice scheme. And a very renowned think tank in Thailand, TDRI, Thailand Development Research Institute, did make extensive reports that the rice scheme was going into the line of corruption. So Prime Minister Yingluck was warned many times, but she did not heed all the warnings and so on. So that's the thing. Now, as to the political situation in Thailand, I think all the political bodies and movement and so on are weakened at the moment by very repressive law, and most of the leaders have so many court cases. So I think the military junta at the moment is basking in the sun with their absolute power.
Right.
But again, the military intervention was the result of absolutism in the parliamentary majority rule. We did not have democracy in the parliament for that record.
Okay, Sean, I just want to nail this down if I can, very briefly. I need a brief answer from you here, but I don't think we've explained this well enough to people who don't know what's going on in Thailand at the moment. Can the Shinawat's unpopularity among certain sections of Thai society be put down to class differences?
I think it's more than that. For the first time in Thai history, that those provincial regions, especially the north and the northeast, are really looked after. The program that the Pheu Thai and Thai Rak Thai, which Prime Minister Thaksin and Yingluck were responsible for, the people have the type of democracy that they could touch and feel and eat over it. And as far as this rice program, it was a one-time thing. And when there was some notification from national corruption or the warning, I think that she changed the minister. She was responsible. At the end of the time of the coup in 2014, I think Yingluck has left 400 billion baht in the central account, and she was very responsible. When she heard of some wrongdoing, she takes solution to correct it. This is why the type of affection and loyalty, despite of this coup for the past 3 years, if there's an election again, Pheu Thai, according to the army poll that I have heard privately, that would win the election today. So those could accountable for the type of stronghold that Thaksin and Yingluck has on the people of the north and the northeast.
Verapat, Pariyawong in London, where does this leave the Thaksin political dynasty then? You just heard that their party, if there was an election, would probably win. Yingluck's opponents had long argued that she was just her brother's proxy. Are they going to be able to continue to dominate Thai politics from exile and pull the strings from abroad? Will Thaksin's influence persist, do you think?
I think it's very too early to say what's going to happen next, but I don't think we should focus on the brother and the sister. We should focus on the aspiration, the need, and the wish of the Thai people. Yingluck and Thaksin came into power not because they are magicians or they had tanks or guns that would force them into victory over elections. They knew what the Thai people, a large part of the majority of the population in Thailand wanted. They wanted more access to the economy, more access to education and healthcare. And so if Pheu Thai Party, the party that was led by Ms. Yingluck, continues to be able to tap into this aspiration of the Thai people, I think it would be quite interesting to see who would be the next leader of the party to fight towards the next general election, if there is going to be one. With regard to Thaksin and Yingluck, Yingluck could either choose to follow the model taken by her brother, that is to wield influence from outside, or she could take it to the next level. She could try to use the opportunity while being abroad to explain what happened to her from her perspectives. Because over the past 3 years, it is more or less one-way traffic. We've been hearing accusations and explanations and reasons from the military government, whereas the people, the politicians have the little room, very little freedom to discuss or even assemble in public. So I think that would be an interesting development to see what's going on next.
Okay, we're almost out of time. Kasit, Promya, what do you make of what you just heard then? If there was an election in the very near future in Thailand, the Shinawatra party would still win it.
I think election will be quite prolonged. It will not come immediately. As I have mentioned, the military is quite happy with their power and the situation that they are in. There are no outright opposition. There are no external or internal pressure on them for them to return to democracy immediately. The middle class and the upper class in Thailand are quite happy with the military establishment. They don't want to be in a situation where there will be much of the political instability. But one point that I just want to point out, I think the people that came out to approach Thaksin or Yingluck and so on were from all walks of life. It's not about class differences. It's about perception of the abuses of power and the corruption. That's why the people came out. So it's the behavior of the government more than anything else.
And many thanks indeed for being with us, Kasit Promya, former foreign minister in Thailand, Verapat Pariyawong in London there, and Sean Boonpracong in Bangkok. As always, thank you for watching. You can see the programme again at any time just by going to the website aljazeera.com. For further discussion, join us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle @AJ Inside Story. From me, Adrian Finighan, and the whole team here in Doha, thanks for being with us. We'll see you again. Bye for now.